Hi there, welcome to our channel. I'm Vic.
I'm Nick.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Andrew.
And we are Envy Board Gaming. And today we're doing another top 10. It is games to play with non-gamers. I have certain criteria for this list. Everyone did their own list. We haven't really combined any lists. Sometimes we do that when we're sort of both couples coming together, putting their lists together. We have a lot of crossovers. But Nick did a quick look at mine and said it wasn't every single game crossing over, so I have my own list, I have my own criteria, and everyone else has theirs as well. For me, a game that's good for a non-gamer is something that right off the bat, the theme is going to capture them. You know, if you know that they enjoy a particular movie, I would suggest, a proprietary game that has that sort of IP. I would suggest that, or something that is short, nothing that takes too much time. I think for me that was something I considered was not a big investment of time. Most games on my list, I also considered how easy it would be for them to pick up that game and actually play it themselves after you've had a chance to show it to them and maybe they went and picked it up because it was actually available or for sale. I mentioned that, and I felt that an easy setup was key. I felt that it was important that it was easy to put out so that people felt, again, that they could take it home and play it alone or share it with other people, and that it had a lot of public information, so they felt that they could ask questions, so that things weren't too private and difficult for them to feel that they could inquire without ruining the game. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted games that were more fair for everyone to sort of be able to have a shot at winning, mm-hmm. and you didn't feel like you had to not play as well just to make them enjoy the game. Mm-hmm. So that was important for me for non-gamers. Andrew, I looked at Nick, said Andrew. Nick, what was your criteria for games for non-gamers?
Easy rules would be nice. If you're going to do a non-gamer, obviously you don't want to give them a lot of rules. Here's a big rule book and a big, reference thing, but you don't want that. So easy rules is number one on the list. Yeah. Got to have the easy rule set. Number two, I would say, was something that would be less stressful. And that doesn't just mean less rules. That means less stressful, and cooperative games are good for this. Like you mentioned with open information, mm-hmm. cooperative games are great for this list. And probably half my list is going to be cooperative because it really lends itself to non-gamers. Mm-hmm. You don't have to hit any hidden information. If you have a question, I can answer that question. And we're working together. I'm not trying to bash you at a game that I know and you don't. So lower the stress levels. Relaxing game, also good for this list. And it has to look appealing in some way or make up for the fact it doesn't with solid gameplay, something that would interest them that maybe they would even consider buying themselves.
Yeah, the cooperative was on my criteria as well. It was at the bottom. Yeah.
What about you, Sam?
I think for me, I would agree. Easy to learn, easy rules, not very long. I would say that would be a huge thing with non-gamers. I also tried to think of what were some games that were intro level for me. And what got me into gaming. So there is a few on there that were kind of some of the first games that I played. But also I think just cooperative as well. There's a few on my list that are cooperative. And trying to think of what else. Oh, and also when we've had game nights with our friends that don't play games typically, what games they loved. Mm-hmm. And so what were the games that they played one time and they went out and bought? So yeah, that was pretty much my criteria.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, kind of a little bit of what you guys are saying. There are some things I left off the list. I did not do any party games, mm-hmm. so no party games. No legacy games, obviously. I don't think getting non-gamers to keep playing the same game over and over. But my big niche was one, obviously I wanted to be a short gameplay, easy to learn, but I also wanted it to be a game that was unique in a certain way, to where it really grabbed their attention, something different that they wouldn't necessarily think of being in a game, but yet, again, low entry level, cheap, so that they wanted to go out and buy it, they could go and get easy access to that game. And also things that they could relate about, because even non-gamers, I think, can, they know about Monopoly, they know about Life, they know about Jenga, those kinds of games, Yahtzee, that kind of stuff. And so some things that they could relate to as well. So that's how I made my list. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Want me to start it out?
Yeah.
All right. Before I start out, I will mention one thing I excluded from my list, and that was we did a top 10 with Better Half Reviews, and that was top 10 games to start a collection. So I did not put any crossover with that list. I made sure of it. I would have had maybe 2. All right. Number 10 for me, get it started, is a game that personally I can take or leave. It's okay to me. But I think this is great to bring somebody in the hobby. I think it really works well, and people can attest to that because it is a really popular game. It's called Horrified. Horrified cooperative game. It's one of my 5 cooperative games on this list. Again, stress-free. If you're a seasoned gamer, you might think, like, to me, I think that you're kind of playing, it kind of the decisions feel like you're almost guided quite a bit. But if you're a non-gamer, you're making intelligent decisions. It probably feels like you're making really meaningful decisions. You're trying to pick up the red tools, do this for Dracula, and do this. So you're feeling those gears click, that you're trying to do things as a team, and it's working really well for people that aren't familiar with these mechanisms. If you've seen it a ton of times before, maybe you won't be as impressed. But for a non-gamer, I think this belongs on the list. People can really test that because it is a very popular game. People love Horrified. So my number 10 is Horrified.
Now, do you like the original or do you like the American?
I have not played the American one. Just the
Okay.
original.
Right. I think non-gamers could get into either one. They're the same thing.
Yeah. My number 10 is a game that I think would bring people in by the novelty of it, the story aspect, and the cooperative nature. I think the simplicity of the rule set also played heavily into me picking this game. And for me, it is Forgotten Waters. We don't have a lot of opportunities to play it, but it is sort of a game that I think introduces players to these legacy concepts, to these sort of worker placement, but in a very light way because they're putting it out, but they're also working together on objectives and sort of seeing different sides of games that they could listen to a really funny, entertaining story and go along with a cooperative game where you're working towards objectives together.
All right, so number 10 for me is actually Cascadia. This is one of, my favorite games, but I think it is a great entry-level tile placement game. The rules are pretty straightforward. I feel like this is a game that we have played with people and they love it, and it's people that, they might play games, but it's a very relaxing, chill game. And so we've even played it with our 5-year-olds. Like, we even taught him how to play it. And I mean, he does fairly well with the game. So it is a very simple game to learn. And overall, I think it would be good for like non-gamers.
Yeah, and that is with the family variant with our 5-year-old.
Yes, I will point that out. But it does have the family variant, which is nice. You can make it easy.
Right. All right, my number 10 is a game that I picked because I related it very close to the game Memory, and that is Deja Vu. So this was almost on the line. I didn't know if I wanted to count it as like a party game, but it's close there where you're going to have a deck of cards in the middle, and you're going to have all these tokens all spread out around it. And as you're flipping the cards over, you're going to be grabbing these tokens. But you're not going to grab them after the first time you see them. You're going to grab them the second time you see them. And there's a lot of almost too much similarity between a lot of the different tokens. So I thought of that game Memory that a lot of people might have played while they were a kid, and this just makes it, I think, even better and more enjoyable. And it's an easy game to play around the table with people and easy to grasp and really cheap. So yeah, my number 10, Deja Vu.
Nice. All right, number 9s. My number 9 is called Dixit. It's a very popular game. You're going to get these very nice illustrated cards. They're crazy looking, but they're very nicely illustrated. Right away, you're going to be captivated by those illustrations when you get your own hand of cards, wondering what this game is going to bring. What are we going to do with these? They don't have numbers. They don't have suits. What are we doing with these cards?
Yeah.
You're teaching a new gamer something new, and it's really cool. It's a really cool intro game where you're trying to get, well, essentially, if you're not the person actually doing that, I don't know if they call them, the person who's, I guess, just the first player, who's trying to... Everyone else is trying to get their card picked, as opposed to the first player who's actually describing what their card was. Essentially, it can be a phrase, it can be a word, whatever it might be, but other people are looking for their own cards, which fit the description that the first player, I'm just going to call them, is looking for their card, what word they said. So you're trying to fool everyone else into picking your card and getting points that way. Nice simple game. It's going to fit all these. It's going to be nice, simple games. So, fix it.
Yeah, my friend Chrissy picked that game up right away. As soon as we played it for the first time, she just loved the artwork, and she was in right away. So I thought that was really cool because she doesn't own that many games. So that was awesome. For me, number 9 is another game that has an app component because I feel that could draw people in to see that these are not games the way that they think of Scrabble or they think of Monopoly. Because anytime I tell people I like board games or ask them if they'll give it a try, they automatically assume they're playing Monopoly or that they're going to end up playing like Trouble or Sorry or something. But for me, this is interesting because it'll show that you can use your phone in games now, and there's all these tech integrations. And it's another cooperative game that will really appeal theme-wise to people who enjoy detective and Clue, that kind of game. And for me, it is Chronicles of Crime. You get to use your phone, scan QR codes, go your own way, and have a time limit. You got to solve a case. And everyone really enjoys the novelty of the 3D crime scene and stuff. So that's my pick for number 9.
I love Chronicles of Crime. All right. So number 9 for me is Stone Age. This was actually the first worker placement game I ever played that you introduced me to. And so it really brought like my, it created an interest in worker placement games for me personally. I felt like it was not too heavy when I played it. I mean, it was easy to learn, and I feel like that would be a great worker placement game for a non-gamer because it's just a good one. So number 9, Stone Age.
All right. My number 9 is one that has a very uniqueness to the game because each player is going to get a giant magnetic ball, right? And that's going to be Planet by Blue Orange Games. So every time I pulled this game out, it's always been super fascinating because what you're going to be doing is you are going to be drafting these tiles that for each round, and you're going to be placing these tiles on this giant, I don't know what the technical term is, decahedron or whatever, but you're going to be building up this planet, essentially like terraforming it. And as you're building it, you are trying to essentially win over these animals to come and live on your planet. And so it's very simple, very open. You can kind of see what's happening. But it just gives them that tactile feel and something unique and different to try out. So I really like playing it. It's very simple.
Right.
Yep. My number 9.
All right, on to number 8. Number 8 is a game that I haven't given as much love to on this channel. I don't really speak of it, but I know everyone else at this table. I know Andrew and Sam actually talk about it quite a bit. It's a game called Downforce. Downforce is a great game for non-gamers. It just is. If you bring it in front of a non-gamer, chances are they're going to want to play it again. And then they want you to bring it next game night to play it again. That's just the way it just grabs you in some way. And, I like this game, especially if you're not playing the base map where it gets a little more, your decision space opens up a little bit, and I can trap people in lanes and do different things. So I do think it is enjoyable for even gamers for a little bit. So for non-gamers, I think it's a home run. So I'm giving that my number 8.
For me, my number 8 is another game that is a racing game, similar to Nick's. A game that friends of ours, Brienne and a friend that she was seeing at the time, picked out a game called Camel Up from Snakes and Lattes in Toronto, and we learned it really quickly. We sat there, we picked up really fast. Nick learned the rules. They didn't really play very many games at the time. Brienne had some experience with some games, but right away, they understood it. It was fun because everybody felt interested in other people's turns, which I think is another thing I didn't mention initially in my criteria. There was a lot of criteria.
Apparently.
It depends on who you're playing with, but I think it's also important that people have interest in other turns that are going on, and that they're not just looking at their own turn, because I think that can really captivate people. And with the new edition, there is a nice palm tree that sticks out, so it's got some really nice board appeal, and that pyramid shaking up the dice, and the camels stacking on top of each other. It's so fun, and everyone likes a betting kind of game, so that's my pick for number 8, Camel Up.
Such a good game.
Oh, that's a good one too. All right. So for me, number 8 is an app-driven game, which is Mansions of Madness. This is one that we do not own, but this is one that we have played with friends, and I just think a lot. But I think I'll agree with you with the app-driven games. Like, everybody, well, for the most part, they know how to work apps. And so that makes it more intriguing for non-gamers because they're like, oh, this doesn't really feel like a board game, but it clearly is. And I mean, so you're working together, you're trying to stay alive, and stuff. So I feel like Mansions of Madness is one of those games that you can just like, you're really into it as well, because it's like a storytelling, and everybody's kind of like on edge, like what's gonna happen, so it can be very exciting. And I think that's a good way to bring in people that don't play games, is you want to keep it exciting.
Yeah.
So number 8, Mansions of Madness.
It's very immersive. I do like that one.
It's three good games in a row. Don't ruin it.
Right, yeah. I'm going back to the tactileness, and this is a game I think that goes along with what Vic was just saying, was where people are kind of engaged in everybody's turn, and that is Dice Forge. So I really like, this is a game where on your turn, you're literally going to be buying faces for your dice. You're going to be getting blessings, so everybody's rolling their dice at the same time, or you're going to be out going and visiting different locations to buy these cards, using these sun and moonstones that you're going to be getting. And the components are beautiful. It's easy to set up, easy to learn, super quick game, and I think it's just fascinating to watch people learn that, oh my goodness, this is a game where I can change the faces of the dice, and it's just something new and unique. And so, yeah, my number 8 is Dice Forge.
Dice Forge.
Yes.
All right, well, you're off the hook. I had not played the game, neither has Vic, right? Dice Forge?
I probably played an online version of that. I remember Tabletop Simulator. No. We were we were stamping dice.
That is that's the other one. What's the other one?
Dice Realms? I know that's one that's
Hold on, we're going to think about this.
Right.
Tim owns this game.
Yeah, I thought it was Dice
Tim
Forge.
owns it. That's not Dice Forge, is it?
You're stamping the dice?
Well,
No,
in
the one where you're
game.
snapping them in?
Yeah, they
That is Dice Forge?
But in Tabletop Simulator, we had to stamp them.
Okay,
the stamp
yes.
button.
Yes, we did play that game.
Oh, interesting.
I'm
Okay.
thinking of the other game, Dice. You just backed on a Kickstarter recently. Not too
I just did?
fairly like it's actually
Dice
delivered.
Realm?
No, you actually delivered with dice, and it has like the mountain thing.
Oh, yeah, Dice Miner.
That's what I was thinking of.
yes.
Yeah, I've played Dice Forge a few times. I was
Yeah.
thinking you were talking about
Yeah.
Dice Miner the whole
Right.
time. I'm like, oh, I haven't played that.
Oh, that's a good one too, though.
That would be
Dice
good.
Miner is a good
I expected that to be on
filler.
your list, so I maybe I just assumed like, okay, they're talking about this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is one we just did a review for. So I'm uploading the review before this. So that would be Foundation to Rome. We just did that review. That's my number 7. So if you want any reasons, how about you check out that review, because we went in depth why that is a good game for non-gamers. Obviously, it's simple and it's epic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a good pick. While we were playing it, I considered it, but this list was already
Set
in
in stone.
stone, so it wasn't changing. It was hard to. There was still a lot of games. I don't want to do too many honorable mentions at the end of this, but
Yeah, I struggled.
it really depends on who you're playing with. For me, I think that. But in any case, these are like the ones that I would guaranteed show somebody. It doesn't matter who, or what they look like, or anything. Number 7 for me is a game that I think people already have experience playing games like this, where you're using deductive logic. Maybe they played in elementary school some like more riddles, or they've solved things on Facebook when there's posts that come up that ask them to solve a math problem or try to figure that out. And it's a unique game because there's a one solution to the game, and everybody's giving each other clues to try to find the location of this being, a cryptid. And the game is called Cryptid, so number 7 for me is Cryptid. I can't believe how, at first when we're going through the game, I think, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to find the location. And then, I've figured it out a few times and surprised myself. So it can make people feel really intelligent, and it's also not too hard to explain. You just know your rule, and there's not too many actions, which I think is another important thing when you're having a game for non-gamers, is that there's not an infinite amount of actions. It's nice, like with Foundations of Rome, there's 3 actions you can do. So it doesn't get into these complicated mechanisms and, you do this first, and then you got to get this resource, and then you can do this. It's too much. But I think when you have just simple, this is the 2 things you're doing. You're going to ask, somebody else about what they know, or you're going to, make a guess about where the cryptid is. You don't really have too many things you can do. So number 7 for me is Cryptid.
Warning that you can ruin that game. There is that caveat. If you're one person messes up a rule,
The whole game is ruined.
you start over.
That is true, but that's fun.
even with experienced gamers. They can mess up a rule just as much as a non-gamer could. It's just an accident. You messed up one thing, and now the game it's ruined. You got no one's gonna be able to win.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number 7 for me is another app-driven game, Destinies. This game is awesome, but I feel like it's one of those other exciting games that there's a lot of interaction. It's really immersive, and it makes you feel like you're actually in the game and you're actually playing these characters and they each have their objectives that you have to, live by. And so I feel like this would be great for non-gamers because it does not take much skill. I mean, your skill is really remembering where things are at, where people tell you to go to be able to get your objective and kind of, in that way. But I would say regardless if you get your objective completed or not, like it's still fun. You still feel like you're in the game. So number 7 for me is Destiny.
I cannot wait to review that game.
I think that that's a really good pick as well because some folks have experience with RPGs. Whether you played a browser-based game like RuneScape, or you played World of Warcraft, or you've played you've read or played video games, Xbox, PlayStation, done a role-playing game, apps. There's all kinds, and so people would have experience and familiarity with going to a location, talking to somebody, making choices. So that's a really good pick. Yeah.
All right, my number 7 is one that we have been playing a lot of and have been putting up a lot of content about, and that is Unmatched. I think this game is going to apply to those video gamers. If you're somebody that likes games like Super Smash Bros., Mortal Kombat kind of stuff, where you are literally just going to be each picking a different fighter and just dueling it out. I mean, the game takes about 20 to 40 minutes, really quick and easy. You're doing one of 3 things. You're moving, attacking, or scheming. The rules are very simple. It's got some really exciting points. If, so every once in a while you might have a dud of a game, but for the most part, it is a game that I have taught to many new non-gamers who absolutely love the game. So yeah, number 7, Unmatched for me.
Nice. Number 6 for me is a crossover. First one, I believe, right? I haven't heard a crossover yet, right?
No.
First one, it's going to be with Sam. You want to take a guess?
Cascadia.
What it might be?
Is it Cascadia?
Oh, well. Sam, is that your guess?
I'm sorry.
I feel like
She
it's
answered for you.
Cascadia or Stone Age.
I thought you were going to say Destinies. It is Cascadia.
Oh, okay.
Cascadia is the first thing that comes to mind when people that haven't played very many games come over. It actually is the very first thing I think of. It's like, they might like Cascadia. Because it's almost like a sure bet. You're going to at least like it. You might not be your favorite game ever. You're not going to hate it. You're not going to say, "Oh, this game was terrible." I mean, you're placing tiles and you're putting animals on tiles.
Yeah.
Nothing to say, "Oh, that's terrible." What's terrible about that? So it just seems like such a safe bet more than any game on this list. So if you're playing a safe bet, you slot it somewhere in the middle of your list. It's my number 6, Cascadia.
Yeah.
It is my number 6.
There's a 3-way.
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful game, appeals to everybody. Anyone sees the cover, they go, "What is that?" It's on our relaxing games list. Yeah. It's a game that
They're number 1.
not too difficult, not too difficult to learn, and who doesn't like the puzzleness of putting together a tableau or a board, like placing together your own city. That kind of game is so appealing to people. So
It's so
Cascadia.
satisfying.
We introduced this game to you, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Good pick.
Great game.
Give the animals a home. All right. So for me, number 6 is my last app-driven game, I promise, which is Chronicles of Crime.
There's a crossover. Right?
Yeah,
crossover,
I love this game. Just the whole, figuring out a crime together as a group. We have played this with non-gamers, and we have a friend actually that she was like in love with this game when we played it, and we got her actually a copy for her birthday because she just loves the game. And so I think it is just, you're scanning the QR codes, like Vic said. I mean, it's very simple, and you're working together as a team to try to figure out this crime. And so I think it's very interactive. You're very immersed in the story. So I think this is another one that you can really get people who don't play games to play. I mean, we even played this with my mom. My mom is not a gamer by any means. She'll play games with us because we want to play them. But this is a game that I know my mom will play every time, and she loves it.
And it's not Disney.
Right.
And it's not Disney
Or
themed.
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Her
So
mom's
Mom,
people.
if you're watching this, shout out. She likes Chronicles of Crime.
Right.
So.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
the
we've actually bought this game for a couple people. So we brought this for
Yeah.
Priscilla for her birthday and Sam for his birthday,
Yeah.
and then Joe and Crystal really liked it, so they were so everybody we've introduced this game to, they love it and they want
Yeah.
to play all the
Amazing.
stuff for us. So it's a great
Yeah.
game. All right, my number 6 is one that I thought would end up on Samantha's list, but after I had looked for crossovers, it is not. And that is a tile placement game that we played on the cruise called Barren Park.
I almost put it on there. I did.
Yeah. I think this was a great little game. That was nice.
Yeah.
It's my tile placement game on here, and so just that. Again, it's very simple. You're building up your own little area, which is nice. And I think that was something I also considered when I was making my list. Was not a whole lot of conflict as well. There will be a couple, obviously, exceptions to that, but for the most part, not too mean. So yeah, very simple game. I actually really want to get the expansion and try this one out just because it looks cool. Adds that like little 3D element to it as well. But yeah, Barren Park, very, very cool theme. Very nice. I'm kind of surprised you didn't put it on your list.
You know, it crossed my mind and I was like, but I've only got to play it once. And so I want the game. I want to buy it. And I want the expansion. But, you know, we'll see. My birthday's coming up.
Oh, that's true. Do you want it for your birthday?
That was your number 6?
Yeah.
Yes,
Barren
number
Park,
6.
Okay. Number 5 for me is probably the simplest game on this list, but also another surefire one just like Cascadia. It's going to be good, especially for non-gamer. They're going to like it because the concept is so simple. It's one of those games that you think should have been designed maybe 40 years ago. It's called JustOne. It is a cooperative party-style game. Such an easy pick, really. If you just have like 30 minutes or whatever, you can just slap this game out. It's just cards, and you're trying to help out your teammates by, giving them clues on your thing. You just can't cross over with your other teammates. If you do, they won't be able to see those clues. Very simple concept. That's the rules right there. So you're just trying to get one player, and it's going to be everyone around the table, so everyone has a chance to guess a word, and everyone's trying to help that person. So everyone's on the same team with a common objective. Easy pick, cheap price point. Go ahead and try it if you haven't already.
And one funny thing about that game is getting people to have their heads around that you're not trying to trick other people. In this game, you're not trying to trip people up. Because it was funny when you first play it. It's just kind of a funny thing I noticed that you...
1 saboteur.
Yeah. It's always one, isn't there?
It's usually Vic.
Yeah. Maybe. My number 5 is a game that I like to try to introduce to people. I bring a pack of colored pencils because I think it makes it more interesting. Roll and write games to me, or even games that you get to mark off your own sheet, are really fun. I think they could draw people in because it's a new experience. Everyone has had experience doing their own Sudokus or crosswords. So in that vein, in that sense, I feel Cartographers is a good pick. There is some meanness with the goblins and doing some hate drawing and looking at each other, but that's, it's all fun and games. I think that the replayability is really strong, and it's such a small, compact game that somebody can go out and buy that game, understand how to play it. It's not too hard to explain. And you can play it anywhere. That has high portability, and I just think that it's so much fun to play. So Cartographers is my pick for number 5.
All right, number 5 for me is Azul. This was actually one of the, I would say within the first year that I was playing board games, this was a game that I played. I really enjoyed it. I feel like it's just, super simple to learn. It's also can be a little stressful, I guess, if you get negative points, but for the most part, you're literally just laying tile. And so it is very pretty. We've played this, I believe, with my friend Amanda, who doesn't play board games. And I mean, she did pretty well. She caught on very fast. It's a quick game. And it was a good intro game for me. So number 5 is Azul.
All right. My number 5 is a crossover with Nick.
Just me?
Nick.
Just me?
Just you. Just you. It is Downforce, yeah.
No.
This was going to have to make the list. I do not know a person that I have not introduced this game to and they have not enjoyed.
Yeah.
So simple, so great. This is one that I will probably never get rid of out of our collection just because I can use it and I love it at almost any player count. I don't know about 2, but I like it at almost any player count. And it's so simple. I like the auctioning, I like the maneuvering. Oh, it gets so tense. I feel like the end of the game is always so intense at the end. So yeah, my number 5 is Downforce.
Nice. All right, my number 4, I feel like you can play, especially some versions of it, with any age. There are some limitations to that in the original version. where you're all around the table. You might not want too many people around the table because it is a big drawing. It is micro, macro. So there are some versions that are a little more vulgar, but there is this one, Full House, which have ratings so kids can play. And you are just have this big map of drawings, and you are trying to figure out what happened where, whatever the case may be. And you're detecting these movements of the different characters on this big map. It is almost like barely a game, it feels like. That's how it just fit for this list for non-gamers, because it's kind of barely a game. It's like an activity.
It's like Where's Waldo?
In a box.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
a
I thought
Where's
right
Waldo with static images still projecting movement. So you're trying to trace down where things happen, because the same character is going to appear multiple times in this map. And you're trying to see why things happen, what happened, and just tracking every single thing on these different cases you're doing. So it is fun, and it is a great one for non-gamers.
My number 4 is a continuation of a roll and write game. This one I feel has lots of replayability. It's another game that people will like because they feel, I guess, it's not too complicated of a game. Although I actually had a hard time understanding it the first time we went through playing it, and it is Welcome To. At first, I wasn't grasping some of the symbology of what it was calling for, so that is one thing that I think may take away from it being perfect for this list. But if somebody, can see you play it, or they go through it enough with you, I feel that there's enough public information that it's not detrimental for people to ask questions, and really once they see everything get played out, or they've played it one time before, they'd be able to catch on to it rather quick. So Welcome To is my pick for number 4.
That's a good one too. There's so many. All right, so number 4 for me is Sheriff of Nottingham. I chose this game because we have had so much fun playing this with like groups of people, and people that would come to like game nights and they did not play games. They did not know and they're like, it's just so easy for them to learn, but it is so much fun. And so I think that's what really draws people in. And we played this with another couple that was at the game night, and they at the next time they saw us, so we went out and bought that game. And so for me, when we play games with people that are non-gamers, or they've just played like Monopoly or Sorry or basic games like that, they go out and buy it. To me, I'm like, okay, then that's the perfect game for non-gamers. So number 4 is Sheriff of Nottingham.
All right, my number 4. I'm finally going to jump on the app-assisted train that you guys have started already. It's my one app-assisted game, and it is one that you can play cooperatively, but you can also play competitively, and that is Stop Thief. So this is by Restoration Games. This is a really nice game where you're listening for the footsteps and trying to figure out where the thief is on the board and trying to catch them and guessing. But they also have ways to play it where someone could be the thief and they're hunting you down, and it's like one versus all kind of thing. So this is one that I always really enjoy. I think they just even came out with a new version. They fixed some of the cards in one of the decks, but great game. I think it's one of the best apps that I could think of in a game right now, and that's Stop Thief, my number 4.
Alrighty, number 3 is a similar game, almost identical to one that I did include in the previous list to start a collection with, but it's called Timeline Challenge. So it's a board game version of the game Timeline, which I included in that list. Timeline Challenge just adds a variable play to Timeline, because it's not just fitting things on a timeline now. Now there's all different areas of a board which you have to work with. But it is a race game, a race party style trivia game, where you have these small cards with years on them, and you're trying to deduce where these things fall essentially in a timeline, but there are different spots of board that change it up. Like one might be you draw 2 cards and you have to put out the difference between the years in which they happened. One might be from 1000 BC, one might be from 1994. So you're going to be putting that difference. Whoever got the closest is going to get the points, and you're racing around and seeing who would win that. I think it works great, especially, I'll say this, especially for elderly people, because they can grasp, and they might have a better knowledge of things that happened in their era.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a good knowledge of history. Maybe they're a history buff. Maybe they're not. Maybe they like pop culture. And there's all kinds of decks of this. I just include everything I have, so you can get things all the way from Dark Side of the Moon from Pink Floyd to the dinosaurs.
Science or the
the first appearance of dinosaurs. We don't know. So it really changes things up. The packs all change things up. It's a very cheap game to get those packs too. Those packs are very cheap for Timeline, and they're super fun. So it's a great one, I would say, especially for you and maybe your parents or grandparents, depending on your age.
My number 3 is the same game.
Timeline
Challenge.
Nice.
Yep. For me, my parents just loved the original Timeline. We ended up, I borrowed it from Nick for a couple of years there. I left it in Canada with my family, and they would bring it to the cottage and play with their friends, which blew my mind because my parents don't do that. They don't bring games and show other people games. Mm-hmm. And so this game, everybody was talking about it. And they would always, be asked to bring it with their friends. And so it was so nice to see them doing that and bringing people into the hobby when they're not even in it themselves. So that was pretty cool. And like Nick said, with elderly people, my mom really loves music. And so for her, the artist questions are questions about music and movies. She's really good at that. So most people don't know the answers to these things. You won't know the year that the toilet was invented. You're not going to know, you're just probably not going to know that. And even if you do, you're not really, there are some that, we play and everyone knows maybe these dates. I shouldn't say everyone because that's a bit smug,
right.
But most people know some significant dates in history that can make the game.
And one card is 9/11.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you might know that.
Mm-hmm. But I think that it's just, I love the variation and all the different modes of the game and the fact that people can see it's a board game and they can grow a love for games without, unassisted, without you having to hold their hand and force them to play the game.
And when I say elderly, I'm not saying your mom. I'm saying
your
my grandma, my grandpa. They play this.
Yeah.
They're good with this.
Yeah.
So it really does.
It was awesome.
All right, number 3 for me is King of Tokyo. This is, a dice game that everybody's different characters, and so you're all fighting for Tokyo, taking hits at each other, and it's very, it's very fun to play, very, lots of interaction, but it is very easy to learn, and I think it's just one of those games where you can get, people that are non-gamers, they could get really excited playing this game. And I think it's awesome because everybody has their own character, and so it's a fun time to play King of Tokyo.
All right. So my number 3 is a game from Kids Tables Board Games, right? No. Board Game Tables, my bad. Board Game Tables, and that is Kabuto Sumo. So I'm going back to kind of that unique look and feel where there's going to be all these wooden discs on this 3D stump. And you are going to represent different insects. And what you're trying to do is kind of like those little coin pushing games that you see at the carnival. You're going to be taking your little wooden dials and pushing them out on the board, trying to push your opponent off of the stump. Right? Mm-hmm. So the whole idea is that this is like the world wrestling of insects, right? And so it's a very unique theme. I think it kind of grabs people, they I know this from the carnivals that I go to growing up kind of stuff. And each bug has their own unique ability, which is really cool and unique as well. And so, that's why I think this is one that will grasp people. I volunteered last Gen Con and taught this game for 4 hours straight. And so it was it's been such a great hit every single time we played it. My number 3 is Kabuto Sumo.
Are you back in the expansion? Isn't that a kick?
Oh, 100% I will.
Okay. Nice.
Yes.
So you didn't grow old on you either after 4 hours of teaching. That's good.
No, I really enjoy the game. I really do.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of games I would play over and over again that I would be like, okay, I think I'm done. So that's a good testament that actually.
Yeah.
I think the different bugs allows that to happen because you can be trying the different powers and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they can do teams, so it's 2-on-2 as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. And they did a review on that. If you want to check that out, I'll post that up here. Okay. All right. And we are down to number 2. Number 2 is a game that it felt like it got criticized a little bit, but I think it got criticized because of its popularity. People were calling it not a game. Just like I kind of said about Micro Macro, this is The Mind. The Mind is more of a game than Micro Macro is to me. Because you do have abilities that you can use as a team. You can say, I'm going to use this ability now to get rid of that or get rid of our cards and things like that. There are more gamery things in this, but essentially you're just trying to play cards without communication. anything, no communication. Play cards with your teammates in order. So cooperative game, simple card game, so it's going to be a good price point for you, and people are going to enjoy this one, I think. And whenever they first play it, they're going to want to play it again and again and again, and I think it definitely has that appeal. So the Mind is my number 2.
My number 2 game is a game that is in the party game category. It's very similar to Timeline Challenge. It is a game that most people aren't going to know the answers to these questions, which makes it more fun than, your Trivial Pursuit or any other like quizzing games where you feel like you're on the spot and you're supposed to know the answer to something and you get punished, you got it wrong. Nah, this one's not like that. Wits and Wagers is my pick. There's lots of variations. There's like a Vegas one. Nick knows more. There's a few different ones
Vegas,
out there.
Party, Family are the big 3.
Yeah. Well, anyone we've played, we really love. You bust out this felt sort of player mat or player board or board.
Yeah, I think that's the Vegas one. Has that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they all have.
Oh, okay. Maybe the other one is. But the felt is cool. The betting is right away. People understand that. They understand that how that's going to work because most people understand the concepts of betting. And the fact that you don't have to know the answer. So it'll be something really obscure, how the deepest lake. And the answers are sometimes really funny. They'll range from really low answers to some people think that the deepest lake's super, super deep and unfathomably deep. And it's funny because you can get points or, win money from betting on other people. So I just really think that you can learn a lot in the game, and it seems appropriate for most age groups. We played with very young children that have helped with their parents and made guesses, and also with older people, and everyone seems to really love it.
Yeah.
So Wits and Wagers.
All right, kind of going back to the Mind. Every time I think of that game, I think of when we would play it, and you can't talk.
Right.
So you're like, I feel like that was the game. I always think of us like making weird humming, like.
Let me bring this rule.
I feel like that happens in every game where we're not allowed to talk. Even like the crew, we're like.
It's so funny.
Guttural noises.
Oh god.
He's at 5 right now.
Right. Yeah. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
It was hilarious. Oh, I just had a flashback of that. Okay. Number 2 for me is King Domino. So this is another entry-level game that I played when he started playing games with me. Just placing the different dominoes, building up your kingdom. It is a very fun, fast game to play. I think that pretty much anybody could learn it. It's one of those games that, each time is different too. It's not the same game. It's, I think, obviously there's all the expansions and things, but the base game, I think that could be played with anybody.
I like King Domino Origins a little better.
I do too, but I thought King Domino the original.
Okay, all right. So my number 2 is a crossover with Nick and Samantha. I don't think it's a crossover with
right?
Vic. Yeah, it should be pretty easy, right?
Because we both said it, Sam and I.
Yes. You know what it is?
Crossover?
Yeah.
Vic would have said that too.
Did she say it?
Is it Cascadia?
Yes.
Yeah, Vic did say it.
Vic did say, okay, 4-way crossover.
Yeah.
Which I felt like of all games, this was the one that was going to probably make all of our lists. And really, just everything they said. It is such a good game and just very puzzly, so I won't go into too much detail. But yeah, number 2, Cascadia. If you haven't played it, go play it.
Yeah, like I said, it could be the safest pick of any of these right here.
Right.
It's not my number 1, but it could be the safest one.
Right.
All right, so what is our number 1s? Let's do it. Number 1 for me is the most cooperative game on this because everyone is so involved. It's called So Clover.
I thought this might be on your list.
Consideration for me.
I have never been feeling like everyone at the table was so involved as opposed to a game or a comparison to a game of So Clover because you're checking with everybody. Does that make sense to you? Would he think that if you ever play that? And I played this with some of your buddies, and I felt just as involved with people I didn't even know that as much as they were because everyone was asking for input, and we all have some information to share. Mm-hmm. There might be some little tidbit of information like. Maybe he knows this.
Right.
If he knows this, then that fits for Rome.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Right.
It's really unique in that way of how cooperative this game actually is. And I feel like this fits so perfect for this list of non-gamers to get people involved in a game and sharing their thoughts on something. So I like that for a non-gamer.
Yeah, I thought of this game when I was composing my list. It was unfortunate it was just 10 games because this was one I only played one time on the cruise. But right away I really liked the way that it played, and I loved that everyone was involved in that decision making. I thought that was so key rather than just, like Hong Kong Deception. That Deception Murder in Hong Kong, it feels like maybe 2 or 3 people are really trying to figure it out, and then a couple of other people might be sitting in the background.
That's up to the players. That's a good pick for this list.
Anyway, maybe. I don't know. For me, it just feels like there's sometimes people dominating it and other people not so much. But that one, I think that everybody gets involved more. So for me, my number 1 is a game that I actually didn't play until recently, and we've only ever played the digital version of it. Available on Board Game Arena, perhaps, or we downloaded it. It was in a Humble Bundle, and we got this game, the digital version of it. So I have not played the physical version of it, but there are so many additions and different map packs, and it's a game highly accessible, mainstream as ever. And this is Ticket to Ride, a route building game. I think the simplicity of it is great. I think that all the different maps that people can encounter with the different features that the maps have, where they bring in new rule sets, keep people interested in the game, and it's not difficult to catch on to. I think a lot of people will enjoy it, so Ticket to Ride has got to be, for me, the number 1.
That's funny.
Yeah.
My number 1 is Ticket to Ride also. I have only played the physical version of the game, but we have all of the maps, well, all of them besides Nordic countries. But this is, it is a very easy game to learn. Makes you kind of feel like, you're playing a standard board game, with the big map, and you're putting out your little train pieces, and I mean the base game is very simple, and this is a game that we've also played, I want to say with my mom too. I think she's played Ticket to Ride, and this was Ticket to Ride was one of the first games I also played as well. So I love Ticket to Ride. It's one of those games that he always beats me at, but I'm okay with that because I thoroughly enjoyed
Still
the
had
game.
fun route making, right?
I did. And then, you get a little salty when people cross into your route. That's literally the worst.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ticket to Ride. It's a oldie but goodie.
Right, yeah.
Good one.
And what's nice about that game, I'll throw in, is that if people don't want to get those big versions, they can get the smaller versions.
Yeah.
Because
New York, London.
Yeah, and they just announced San Francisco actually. So now they're coming out of San Francisco with the little
Poop in the street.
Yeah.
Sam, if you were to pick one edition, which one would you pick?
Yeah.
I was actually just
non-gamers.
thinking about this in my head.
San Francisco. San Francisco.
That's the newest one. My favorite one is New York. I'll say that.
For a non-gamer?
Oh, for non-gamers,
yeah.
definitely not New York. For non-gamer, probably Europe is the nicest, forgiving.
You like it better than the original,
Right,
For new.
because you have those train stations to where you can actually share someone else's line.
That's the only one I own.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I would probably say UK.
Okay.
Really? With the technologies and everything?
bit
For
much.
non-gamers?
For yeah. Is it
Do
UK is where you have to stay in your specific area, right?
That's the one where you can only do so much until you buy upgraded cards to upgrade your trains, and you can go further.
Yeah,
so, you
well,
can only
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
You can
maybe
pick
now.
that. They gotta get in your level.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and I might be saying that too because that's my favorite.
Yeah.
But and then maybe
I thought you liked Africa.
Africa
With the terrain.
The
That's a
Africa
little-
with the terrain. I think that would be easier actually. The UK, it'll step it up a notch. Yeah.
Samantha's
Africa.
just that much better at it. So
Yeah.
you got to be way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So my number 1 has also already been mentioned, but this was going to be my number 1 as soon as we talked about this list, and that is King of Tokyo. Really like this game. If you like Yahtzee or if they know how to play Yahtzee, this is way better than Yahtzee. You even have a kid that you work with that's obsessed with Yahtzee. I was like, show him this game.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be so much better. The theme of trying to fight over, being monsters fighting over each other, getting into Tokyo, and you're hitting everybody and trying to earn these points. You can get these cards. Very simple, nice twist on Yahtzee. Definitely my number 1. This is one that, again, I have introduced this to a lot of people, and they have gone out and bought it. And they love the game.
Yeah, and there's so many different like creatures that you can buy for it.
And they just came out with the big monster box. That's a little pricey. So I think I saw it on for sale at a game store. It was like $60-$70. So that might be a little high for non-gamers, but we don't have that. We just have the basic version.
Yeah. I know that King of Tokyo was one of the first games that Nick and I played when Nick started purchasing these games. It wasn't one of the. It was an early game for us that we were playing because we brought it to a brewery and we were able to play it with other friends that I wouldn't call non-gamers, but I would call pretty close to. And they loved it too. Who doesn't like rolling dice, right?
Right.
You're right away going to catch people's attention with that, and then battling each other. Right. So that's really cool. And the Yahtzee familiarity is helpful.
Yeah. All of us are like, I'm going to lay hands on you.
Yeah.
Lay hands.
Lay hands.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions?
Yeah.
I would say for me, I got to give one JustOne. JustOne, Nick said it. I considered it. It was on my list, but I was trying not to put too many party games into this list, and then it got filled up with roll and rights. So.
Sam?
All right. Yeah, you know what? And I didn't. This was one that I didn't know how many honorable mentions we were going to talk about.
50,
but
50 at least.
Downforce, definitely an honorable mention. But another one that I have to mention because I actually brought it to work with the kids I work with, and they love it. And I am sick of playing it because every time I see them, can we play this? Can we play this? Can we play? I'm like, oh my gosh, again? Like, this is all we play. Trash Pandas.
No.
They just, I don't know. It's like I can teach it to an 8-year-old, or an 8-year-old loves it, and then I play with a 17-year-old and she loves it. And the kids that I work with, not all of them are really gamers. They're not really gamers at all. They're like, oh, let's play Uno, or let's play, you got Monopoly? I'm like, of course not. I do not have Monopoly.
I'm above that.
So I have a feeling if I brought more games to work, like these kids would be hooked. And like, they literally, with Trash Pandas, I have had a kid go out and buy the game. I've had multiple kids ask me, where do you find this game at? And it's Walmart, Amazon, it's like $10, and I think that's a good point too, is that it's very cheap. It is all based on luck, but it is still a very fun game. I have to give it some love because of, the kids I work with.
Yeah, so. When we first played that game, you got so mad you threw the dice across the room.
I have grown since then. Kids whoop me all the time at that game. Right. All the time. And I have to practice a lot of self-control, so I guess it's like, it's a learning experience.
That's why you hate the game, because kids can beat you. Right?
Yeah, I was like, you little... Yeah.
Great therapist, though. Great therapist.
Yes. I mean, I have to lead by
Number
example.
1 in India.
Yeah.
That's funny. I had a couple honorable mentions. So one, Nick mentioned Foundations of Rome. I was tempted to put it on the list, but because of the reasons we talked about it being so expensive and so big, I didn't... I was trying to think of games that were going to be accessible to them, that were going to be
that
cheaper.
They would be able to buy.
Right, that they'd be able to go out and buy. So yeah, Foundations of Rome is one. Another was Canvas, trying to build up those different art pieces, which are really nice. And also Splendor was another one I thought of. I think that one doesn't get talked about as much as it used to, but it's a nice little engine building game where you're just kind of collecting gems or buying cards.
Okay. I have a few that were crossovers. So Chronicles of Crime has been mentioned. Wits and Wagers, Vic mentioned, and King of Tokyo, you guys mentioned. One I'm surprised nobody mentioned is Codenames.
That was on my short list.
Yeah.
It was on my other list, so I couldn't include it, but that was a good one. Codenames definitely would be in my
I'm not
top
a
10.
big fan of Codenames, that's why I think. I just don't care for it too much.
I would have put that one up there for my list if it wasn't on one but previously. And the last one was not a crossover, but it's a game called America. I didn't include it because it's centric to a country. I don't want to pick something like that. Because some of the trivia just appeals to Americans. And
really smart Canadians.
I don't think you've won a game of America.
Was that
It's too American
I
centric.
know I won.
I don't want somebody from Italy playing the game, of America, because they're not going to know.
Because they're
the
not
states.
allowed.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
an
not allowed,
American
first of all.
specialist.
It's prohibited.
Okay, was that the game we played where it was like, how many nicks can you fit
Yes,
in a room?
that's the one. Yep. So the reason is I would pick it for somebody. We had so much fun with that game.
Yeah.
May have been some influence in there too, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have states, so there's states you can pick, or years, or numbers.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool. It's a different type of trivia game, but you can have 3 different spots you can go to.
Yeah.
In the states, it's such a cool board to put a thing on a state. You almost want to do that every single time.
Yeah.
So I'm putting a cube on this state.
Yeah.
And you kind of just take a shot in the dark sometimes. You have no idea, but that sounds like California. Putting that there. And it's just a fun trivia game that you really don't have to know very much to score points, but it's still super fun.
I'm gonna share this story just a little bit because it's just too good. So we were playing in America, and there was the question came up to like how many like feet or whatever were in those red flyer wagons.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
it was
inches,
a
right?
It was inches, yeah. And so Nick's sitting there waiting to make his decision. He's looking up at the ceiling, just kind of thinking. I'm like, what are you doing? How many nicks could fit? I'm thinking, because he's like, I had one when I was a kid. How many nicks could fit? I was like, the unit is in inches, not nicks.
1 nick.
So I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh yeah, that's right.
That's inches?
We died all night and into the next day, probably.
Yeah.
Still going on.
It's been an inside joke for a while.
Yeah,
Nicks.
I loved it. It was so great.
Well, I do have one thing that before I do our final sign off, I know this video is a little long, but for a discussion piece in the comment section, one thing that I found when I was doing some research into what people think are good games that they've been introduced to, thinking about games that I've played with new gamers or even people who played other types of games. Really quickly, I want to say, we've said a lot of games that are pretty straightforward, easy, not too hard to learn. But I do wonder about the appeal of games that are more difficult. And if people would find a game like, I'll give you, for me, one game that I was going to put, but I wasn't sure. Scythe. At first, we played this game, and I felt really scared by the rule set. I was like, oh no, I'm not going to understand this. But the game itself is so intriguing to people who are not gamers, I would think, because they could see a game that is being played where it's so unique and so different. And maybe like the simplicity of a game may not appeal to people who are non-gamers. But that's something I wanted to leave for like the comment section. And you can maybe debate that. If a game is too simple, do you think you could lose people? Maybe do you think that a heavy game might have an opposite effect where people might enjoy it? That's something that maybe you could chat about in the comments. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more great lists. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yay.
Bye.